Atlantis. Just the name sends a chill, right? A once legendary civilization, powerful, advanced, stunning, that vanished beneath the waves in a single day and night. Most of us have accepted Plato's tale as myth. But what if the myth is real? What if modern science is slowly unearthing evidence that lines up perfectly with his story? Let's dive into one of the most fascinating Atlantis theories out there. That this lost empire once stood tall, right above sea level on what's now called the Azores Plateau in the middle of the Atlantic. And yes, that timing? It may just match Plato's exact description. We start with our source, Plato. In his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, he describes Atlantis as a maritime superpower situated beyond the Pillars of Heracles, what we know today as the Strait of Gibraltar. According to Plato, Atlantis was massive, larger than Libya and Asia combined, and sailors from there could eventually reach a huge continent we now call the Americas. He claims the story came from Solon, the great Athenian lawmaker, who learned of Atlantis while visiting Egyptian priests in Say. These priests told Solon of a war between Atlantis and ancient Athens and dated the destruction of Atlantis to some 9,000 years before Solon, or about 11,600 years ago. That's not just a random figure, it aligns perfectly with the end of the Younger Dryas, that sudden cold snap at the close of the last ice age. Then came Meltwater Pulse 1b. Ice sheets collapsed, sea levels surged, and coastlines vanished before our eyes. That flood event could match with Plato's timeline. At the same time, in southeastern Turkey, Göbekli Tepe was being built. Often hailed as the world's oldest known temple complex, it's full of giant carved pillars and symbols that seem to encode star knowledge. One pillar, known as Pillar 43, appears to track solstices and other celestial alignments, dating roughly to 10,950 BCE. Some researchers, including Martin Swartman, even argue that its builders understood precessional cycles, the so-called Great Year, of approximately 26,000 years. That hints at true sophistication surviving into the post-glacial era. So, high intelligence, monumental architecture, a timeline that matches Plato's destructive flood. Now zoom out west, over the Atlantic. Enter the Azores Plateau. This vast, triangular underwater landmass is nearly 400,000 square kilometers, almost twice the size of Great Britain. Today, it peaks above sea level in the form of the Azores Islands, but bathymetric maps reveal flat plains and steep-edged seamounts, landscape that looks eerily structured. Its location is perfect. It sits just beyond the Pillars of Hercules, right where Plato placed Atlantis. More than that, the geology here is unusually intriguing. The plateau sits atop the Azores Triple Junction, the meeting point of the North American, Eurasian, and African tectonic plates. Beneath it lies the Azores hotspot, a powerful mantle plume that once churned out continental-type crust over a span from about 20 to 7 million years ago. That's almost unheard of for a mid-ocean region. Normally, crust created over hotspots drifts away, but the plateau barely budged. Sea level rose roughly 130 meters since the Ice Age, but that rise wasn't equal everywhere. Through isostasy, some continental crust rebounded as glaciers melted. Meanwhile, oceanic crust may have sagged under new pressure. If the Azores plume was already weakening 11,600 years ago, the plateau would gradually sink, what geologists call bottom-loading isostasy. If that slump happened rapidly, say triggered by tectonic stress or a plume collapse, it could explain a sudden disappearance of land that was once above water. In fact, core samples from the mid-Atlantic ridge show signs of vertical displacement, up to 5,500 meters in some areas, way beyond what simple sea level rise would cause. Also, limestone cobbles have been found on the sunken plateau, indicating shallow water deposition and suggesting that the area was once above sea level within the last 12,000 years. Now here's where it gets really wild. Using Plato's measurements, the outer ring of Atlantis should measure just under 5 kilometers across when converted from his stadian unit, 185 to 192 meters. The site in question on the Azores Plateau measures about 4.996 kilometers across, and the second ring matches almost exactly. Some 3D bathymetric models even reveal an inner ring, though sediment makes it faint. Off to the southwest lies a deep depression over 700 meters deeper than the central area, possibly the inland sea Plato mentioned. After 10,000 years of mud, landslides, and seismic shifts, it's no surprise everything's buried, and Plato even wrote that Atlantis became swallowed by mud and impassable. Even volcanic activity on Pico Island in the Azores hints at subsidence. There's a tilted pyramid structure among dozens of similar features across the archipelago. While much younger and likely unrelated, the tilt suggests ongoing land shifts across the region over centuries. So what do we have? A civilization described in ancient lore, a geological hotspot region with unique subsurface structure, a time matched to one of Earth's greatest sudden floods, a submerged site with rings and dimensions matching those attributed to Atlantis. None of this is decisive proof, but maybe it's a fragment of real memory, hidden underwater and waiting to be uncovered.